Ladies and gentlemen, I really don't like slug shotguns. Well, I really don't like slug shotguns in PvP. I kinda stink with them, like really bad. But in PvE, with the launch of Season of Arrivals 6 months ago, our slug shotties got a 30% damage increase across the board. And this change alone turned Chaperone from a PvP only weapon into a top tier DPS special weapon in PvE. But with the launch of Beyond Light, we saw another exotic slug shotgun emerge. And well, I mean, it's only half slug shotgun, but regardless, the weapon I'm talking about is our Season Pass exotic, Duality. It's 1 part spread shotgun, 1 part slug shotgun, and all in all, a pretty interesting weapon. But how does it stack up against the raw damage output of the Chaperone? And does this weapon's added utility make it an overall better option? I'll do my best to answer those questions in this review, but first I need to bring up 3 points. 1, I won't be diving into PvP in this video. These are words that I have never said before, but since I'm pretty terrible with slug shotguns in the Crucible, and it is the holiday season, I just don't want to put myself through that aggravation right now. 2, there's gonna be a fair bit of damage testing in this video, meaning numbers. Lots of numbers. I like numbers, hopefully you do too. And 3, if at any point during the course of this video you find it useful, helpful, or enjoyable, please do me the honor of leaving it a like. And consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel if you're digging the content and you'd like to see more. But into the comparison with a look at each weapon's stats and perks. Alright, here's our in-game display of each weapon's stats, but we should probably pull up some solid numbers from white.gg. And since we are testing Duality with the catalyst applied, let's make the proper adjustments. And since most of you are probably watching this video on your phone, let's zoom it in a little bit so you can actually read these numbers. And all better. Alright, a few things to note here on the stats. Duality does have the higher impact stat, but Chaperone, being a kinetic weapon, will inherently deal more damage. For the range, without the catalyst on Duality, Chaperone is the clear winner, but with the catalyst applied, it's very close. Duality is the more stable weapon, while Chaperone boasts better handling and better reload speed. Kind of. More on that in a little bit. Chaperone does fire slightly faster than Duality, but Duality can hold 2 more rounds in the magazine once the catalyst is applied. Again, only a slight edge to Chaperone in the aim assist department, while Duality can carry more ammo in reserves. The zoom is identical on these weapons, and Duality does have the better recoil direction. For the perks, since these weapons are exotics, they're already factored into the weapon stats. We just need to look at the intrinsic trait and the exotic perk for each. Starting with Chaperone, intrinsically it fires a single slug. But the exotic perk is the Roadborne, where precision kills grant bonus handling, range, and precision damage on this weapon. So moving over to Duality, the intrinsic trait is Compression Chamber, fires a pellet spread in hipfire or a single slug when aiming down sights. The exotic perk here is On Black Wings. Pellet Final Blows grant stacking precision damage and a reload speed buff. Precision hits with slugs extend the duration. And with all that covered, it's time for me to bang my head against the wall in a lost sector and try to score you some damage numbers. Alright, we'll take a look at Chaperone first, as to get the easy one out of the way. And as always, do keep in mind that the actual numbers in PvP are relative to your power level and the enemy's power level. But this process will work just fine for comparison's sake, and we will be testing against this major tier Colossus. So for Chaperone's base damage, it will deal 24,543 points of damage on a crit, and 13,986 points of damage to the body. So the maximum damage output for a single magazine, if we land all crits, is 147,258. With the Roadborne perk, after securing a precision kill, we have 10 seconds to make the most out of our damage buff. You will retain this buff if you reload, or swap weapons and then swap back. And each precision kill that you score will add 5 seconds to its duration when the buff is already active. The damage increase that we're seeing against this Colossus is roughly 22%, and this is only applied to precision shots landed. This brings us up to 30,028 points of damage per shot. So a full magazine with Roadborne active can potentially deal 180,168 points of damage. On to Duality, and things here do get a little bit more complicated. At base, when firing from the hip, the 11 pellets will hit for approximately 1,300 points of damage apiece to the body. So if you land all your pellets, you will output 14,300 points of damage. If every pellet lands as a crit, they'll all smush together for 17,275 points of damage. And optimally speaking, if a full 8-round magazine of hipfire spread shots all land as crits, the potential damage output is 138,200 points of damage. When aiming down sights with Duality, the slug will crit for 23,716, roughly 800 points of damage less than Chaperone's base slug. And a slug to the body is dealing 13,514 points of damage. This is approximately 500 points of damage less than Chaperone. But if a full magazine of slugs all land as crits, we're dealing a total of 189,728 points of damage, besting Chaperone when it is buffed by over 9,000 points of damage. For the On Black Wings perk, each hipfire kill will grant us 1 stack. This incrementally increases our precision damage for the next shot. These stacks have a duration of 7 seconds, which is not displayed on screen. Every hipfire kill is going to fully refresh this timer, and each precision shot landed when aiming down sights will add about 1 second onto the timer. But when you reload your weapon, you will lose all of your stacks. And here on screen you can see the single shot crit damage for a slug at each tier. And a few things to note, we do see about a 4,000 point jump when going from 1 stack to 2 stacks. At 3 stacks, Duality now exceeds the crit damage for Chaperone with Roadborne. And at 6 stacks, we hit our damage cap at 36,699 points of damage, because as we can see at 7 stacks, the damage holds steady. Alright, now here's the part that confused me a little bit. Since we lose all of our stacks on a reload, and we need to commit 1 round from our magazine to build a single stack, we are able to fire 1 less round as the damage tiers increase. So when looking at this solely from a single target damage perspective, our damage output actually decreases as our damage tiers get higher because we have less rounds to bury into the boss. This means firing 8 precision slugs into a boss with 0 stacks is netting us the most damage. This made me think that maybe this shotgun was built for just grabbing a few stacks and one-banging a major target, and not necessarily for boss damage. And while Duality certainly is capable of that, it took me a minute to figure out that I was missing a piece to this puzzle. And the missing piece was auto-reloading capabilities. You only lose your stacks if you manually reload the gun. So in my case, I was able to put on transversive steps, build my stacks, and then sprint over to the boss as my weapon reloaded. And if I could have actually landed all my crits here, I could potentially output 293,592 points of damage with 8 shots. Which, I mean, blows a full magazine of Roadborne out of the water, dealing over 100,000 additional points of damage. Now I could go on and break down reload speeds and fire rates and DPS and total damage from reserves with periodic buff refreshes and autoloading Chaperone with transversive steps, and probably 50 more ways to break down the niche aspects of each weapon's potential damage. But I feel like this would make for an extremely boring 45-minute video, and we'd probably just circle back to the same point. The potential damage of Duality is much higher than that of Chaperone. And plus, we still need to talk about each weapon's in-game performance. So let's get into that now. Alright, the first thing I want to take a look at here is each weapon's physical range. And I can more accurately gather this information in PvP. See? I should have known I couldn't stay out of the Crucible for one full video. We have Chaperone seeing damage fall off past the 12 meter mark. But at least in PvP, you can still secure a one-hit kill from the 13 meter mark. And while I'm not showing it on screen, I can tell you with 100% certainty that with Roadborne active, you can secure a kill from the 15 meter mark. With Duality's Precision Slug, you will hit for full damage from 9 meters away. But for PvP, you can still secure your one-hit kill from 11 meters away. When firing from the hip, the spread will maintain full damage from up to 10 meters away. At 10.5, we do start to see that damage fall off. So the spread actually carries 1 meter more range than the slug does. As far as one-hit kill consistency in the Crucible when firing from the hip, I'm gonna call it 6 meters. Very, very consistent at 6 meters. We move back to 7 meters, I could not secure a kill. And I know there's a lot more that I could test with Duality and the Black Wings perk, but this isn't really a PvP video, maybe another day. And the range for both weapons is pretty nice when squaring off against an enemy that does have a stomp mechanic. Now at the edges of these weapons' optimal range, you're probably not going to completely avoid the stomp radius, but you'll at least not take the brunt of it. But with Duality though, we do have those 2 extra rounds from the Catalyst, This is not only nice for boss damage, but also for ad clearing, especially if there's some more robust targets sprinkled in the pack. Also, the reload on Duality is much better than that of Chaperone. If you remember back to the stats breakdown, Duality was shown to have worse reload speed than Chaperone. But with Chaperone, you're loading each individual shell, taking 6 seconds to load 6 rounds. Duality, on the other hand, loads its full magazine in one crack, taking only 2.8 seconds to load 8 rounds. But losing all of your on-black wing stacks on a reload I find to be a little frustrating, and there's no doubt that this is in place to keep Duality in check. But because of this, I really do like Chaperone's Roadborne buff better, just from a ease of use standpoint. You don't lose that buff until your timer hits 0, and it's kinda nice to actually have a timer on screen also. And mechanically, it's just a lot simpler. You get a precision kill, and you go to town. With Duality, it really takes a conscious effort for you to get that buff firing on all cylinders. And the situation isn't always right to do so. And to really hit those high damage tiers, you kinda have to lean on an external factor. Now if you're a hunter, I mean, no big deal. Marksman's dodge and you're good to go. But my warlock, who does not have a tuck and roll auto reload maneuver, is handcuffed to an exotic armor piece. And I don't like the way this feels. It can really limit build diversity, and it feels like I'm spending 2 exotics to make one work properly. With Chaperone, while it can't reach those extremely high damage numbers, at least the buff is more or less self-contained. But the last point I want to touch on is Duality can be masterworked and does generate orbs of light. How Chaperone has been in the game for this long and does not have a catalyst yet is beyond me. But for now, it is what it is. For the verdict, both are very powerful shotguns in their own right, and both feel like very viable options. For me personally though, if I had to pick one for myself, I'd probably stick with Chaperone, just for simplicity's sake. There's a certain amount of beauty in simplicity, and for anything that I'm doing in Destiny 2, Chaperone's damage output is plenty. With Duality, you really do need to work just that much harder to keep it rolling, and this does take some doing, but your reward is extremely high damage for your troubles. But currently, if I really need that much close range damage, I'll probably just take the Lament for my exotic. But hey, that's just my personal preference, and hopefully I provided you with enough information to make an informed decision on which shotgun would work better for you. But since you made it to this point in the video, if you did enjoy it, please remember to leave it a like, and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to see more Destiny 2 content in the very near future. If you'd like to catch me live, I do occasionally stream on Twitch. You can look for Ironworker814 over there, drop me a follow, and you will get notified whenever I hop on. And if you'd like to contact me, the best way to do so is simply to comment down below. I will be sure to get back to you. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this weapon comparison. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.